The mansion stood like a kingdom of its own, tall, grand, and silent. From the outside, it was a symbol of success, a place where wealth lived comfortably, a place many dreamed of entering. But inside, there was no peace. Mr. Adebayo sat alone in his private study, staring at a wall filled with achievements, awards, framed contracts, pictures with powerful men. Each told a story of struggle, sacrifice, and victory. Yet none of them brought him joy anymore. Because the one thing he truly wanted, he could not build with money. His sons, the triplets, born into luxury, raised without lack, given everything most people prayed for. But yet, they had nothing. No discipline, no direction, no sense of responsibility. As Adebayo was deep in thoughts, loud voices echoed from the hallway outside. You think you're smarter than me? At least I'm not as useless as you. Oh, really? Say that again. Mr. Adebayo closed his eyes slowly. It was another fight between his sons. It was always like this. If they laughed together today, they would fight tomorrow. If they agreed on something in the morning, they would become enemies by evening. Peace never stayed. Not with them. He had tried everything. Advice, warnings, even anger. But nothing worked. Why should we be serious? One of them had said one day, laughing. We already have billions waiting for us. That sentence had stayed with the frustrated father. The statement wasn't just careless. It was dangerous, because it meant they didn't understand the value of what they were about to inherit. And if they didn't understand it, they would destroy it. Slowly, the man stood up and walked toward the window. The city stretched endlessly before him. Buildings, businesses, and people moving with purpose. Everything he owned out there, he built from nothing. Every deal had a story. Every success came from risk. Every step forward came with sacrifice. And now, all of it rested on the shoulders of three men who didn't even take life seriously. His chest tightened slightly. What happens when I'm gone? He whispered. The question felt heavier than anything he had ever carried. For the first time in many years, Mr. Adebayo felt afraid. Not to lose his money, but of losing meaning. He turned away from the window, his mind already moving. If they wouldn't learn through words, then life would have to teach them. And this time, he would make sure it did. As Mr. Adebayo wallowed in his fantasy, the shouting didn't stop. If anything, it grew louder. You're lying. Say that again and see what happens. Oh, I will say it again. A glass shattered. That was when Mr. Adebayo stepped out of his study. The moment he entered the living room, the scene before him felt painfully familiar. The three brothers stood apart, breathing heavily, their faces filled with anger instead of brotherhood. Tund, the eldest by minutes, pointed accusingly at Femi. You took my watch. Femi scoffed. Why would I take something that looks that cheap? Kunal leaned against the couch, laughing carelessly. Both of you are arguing over nonsense. I could buy 10 of that watch right now. Tund turned sharply. Stay out of this. Or what? Kunal shot back, stepping forward now. You'll fight me too? And just like that, it escalated. Three brothers. Three egos. One explosion waiting to happen. Enough. Mr. Adebayo's voice cut through the room like a blade. They froze. Not out of respect, but out of habit. For a moment, silence filled the space. But the tension remained. Mr. Adebayo looked at them. Really looked at them. And what he saw made something inside him sink. There was no unity. No loyalty. But only pride among his sons. You are brothers, he said slowly. Why does everything turn into a fight? Tund shrugged. Because they don't understand simple things. Femi folded his arms. Or maybe he just thinks he's always right. Kunal smirked. Honestly, I don't even take either of you seriously. Mr. Adebayo's jaw tightened. This wasn't just disagreement. This was a division. You think life is a joke, he said, his voice calm but heavy. You think everything will always be easy. Because it will, Kunal replied without hesitation. We're not struggling like you did. We already have everything. The words landed hard on their father. Too hard. Mr. Adebayo took a slow breath and said, Everything? Yes, Femi added. Your businesses, your money, all of it will be ours. Tund nodded. So why stress ourselves? There it was again. That same belief. That same dangerous mindset. Mr. Adebayo walked closer, his eyes fixed on them. And if I decide not to give it to you? For the first time, they hesitated. Just slightly. Then Kunal laughed. You won't do that. Femi nodded. You can't. Tund added. We're your sons. Mr. Adebayo stared at them for a long moment. Then he said something that changed the air completely. Being my son does not make you worthy. Silence filled the room. But this time, it was different. The boys exchanged glances, confusion replacing their arrogance for just a second. And it was just only for a second because soon, Connell shrugged again and said, "Anyway, we'll be fine," he said casually. And just like that, they walked away, leaving their father standing there, alone. But this time, something had shifted, not in them, but in him. Because for the first time, Mr. Adebayo stopped hoping they would change and started thinking about how to make them change. That night, sleep did not come easily to Mr. Adebayo. He lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, replaying every word his sons had said. "We already have everything. Why should we be serious? It will all be ours anyway." Each sentence echoed like a warning, not just about them, but about the future of his fortune and empire. He turned slightly, resting on his side, his eyes now fixed on the faint glow of the city lights outside his window. He remembered his own past. There was a time he had nothing. No connections, no comfort, no guarantee of success. Just hunger. Hunger to survive. Hunger to build. Hunger to become something. That hunger had shaped him. It had forced him to think, to grow, to fight for every opportunity. However, his sons had never felt it. And now, they didn't even respect it. Mr. Adebayo sat up slowly, his mind becoming clearer. "If life has not tested them," he murmured, "then I will." The idea came quietly, but once it settled, it refused to leave. By morning, it had become a decision. Later in the following day, Mr. Adebayo called his triplets, just like he always did. The boys arrived one after the other, each carrying the same casual attitude. Tun checked his phone. Femi leaned back lazily. Connell looked around, already bored. "What is it this time?" Connell asked. "Another lecture?" Femi smirked. "Or another warning?" Tund added. "Let's just get it over with." Mr. Adebayo watched them in silence for a moment. Then he spoke. "No lecture today." That caught their attention. No warning either. Now they looked up. Instead, he said something they didn't expect. "I have decided to give you a challenge." The room shifted instantly. "A challenge?" Tund asked, now interested. "Yes," Mr. Adebayo replied. "A test." Connell leaned forward slightly. "What kind of test?" The billionaire stood, walking slowly toward them. "The kind that will decide your future." Now, they were fully paying attention. "For years," he continued, "you have believed that everything I have built belongs to you." No one interrupted. "So I have decided," he said firmly, "that only one of you will inherit my fortune and empire." Silence dropped, and it was heavy and unexpected. Femi sat up straight and asked, "Only one?" "Yes." Tund frowned. "And how do you decide that person?" Mr. Adebayo stopped walking. Then he turned to face them. "You will decide it yourselves." Confusion spread across their faces. "How?" Connell asked. Mr. Adebayo's voice became steady. "By proving who among you is worthy." The tension in the room tightened, and at that moment, the whole thing felt no longer like a joke to the boys. And deep down, each of them felt it. It was real. The air in the room felt different now. No one leaned back anymore. No one checked their phone. No one looked bored. And for the first time in a long while, the three brothers were fully present. Mr. Adebayo walked toward his desk and pressed a button. Moments later, a staff member entered, carrying 3 identical black cases and 3 sealed envelopes. He placed them carefully on the table and left without a word. The room fell silent again. Everything seemed like drama to the boys. Mr. Adebayo gestured toward the cases. "Each of you will take one." The brothers exchanged quick glances, then stepped forward almost at the same time. Each picked up a case and an envelope. The weight of the case alone told them this was a serious case. "Open it," their father said. They did, and inside each case, their eyes were welcomed by stacks of money. Neatly arranged. Crisp. Real. $10 million, Mr. Adebayo said calmly. Even though they were used to wealth, holding those cases felt different to them. Because this time, it was theirs to control. Connell let out a low whistle. "This is interesting." Femi smiled slightly. "Now we're talking." Tun didn't speak, but his eyes had sharpened. "This," their father continued, "is your starting point." He pointed at the envelopes. "The rules are inside." The boys opened them almost immediately and began to read. "You have 5 years. Use this money in any way you choose. At the end of 5 years, you will return and present your results. Whoever generates the highest legitimate profit will inherit my entire fortune and empire. The room became very quiet, but slowly, the meaning settled. 5 years, 10 million, one winner. Everything else, nothing. Connell looked up first, a grin forming on his face. So it's a competition. Yes, Mr. Adebayo replied firmly. Femi folded the letter carefully. And no restrictions? None, their father said. Only one condition. They waited. The profit must be real, traceable, and clean. Tun nodded slowly. So, no shortcuts. Mr. Adebayo held his gaze. That depends on what you consider a shortcut. That answer lingered longer than expected. Connell chuckled lightly. This is going to be easy. Femi added. 5 years is even more than enough. Tun simply closed his case. We'll see. Mr. Adebayo watched them closely. He could already see it. Confidence, excitement, and something else. Overconfidence. Before you leave, he said, his voice slightly heavier, understand this. They paused. This is not just about money. None of them responded. But the truth is that they were not listening. Because in their minds, it was exactly about money. That same day they left. 3 brothers. 3 different paths. 1 destination. But none of them knew that the real test had already begun. And not all of them would survive it the same way. As their journey began, Tund moved fast. Too fast. The moment he left home, his mind was already made up. Speed. That was his strategy. While others would think, plan, and build slowly, he would multiply his money quickly. And in his mind, there was only one way to do that, betting and gambling. At first, it felt like the smartest decision he had ever made. So he located a gambling house, and the environment excited him. Bright lights, loud cheers, screens flashing numbers, people celebrating wins. It felt alive. And within the first few weeks, he won. Big, very big. Millions added in a short time. His confidence exploded. I knew it, he said one night, leaning back with a satisfied smile. This is easy money. He began to increase his stakes. Higher risks, bigger bets, faster moves. He engaged himself in football betting, virtual games, casino tables. He touched everything. And for a while, it worked. But then, something changed. He experienced a loss. At first, it felt small and insignificant. I'll recover it, he said casually to himself. Then another loss. Then another. Then another. But however, his confidence didn't drop, it became aggressive. He started chasing his losses. I just need one big win, he told himself. But that one win never came. Instead, the losses grew. It came faster than he expected and stronger than he could control. Within months, half of his money was gone. That was when fear whispered for the first time. But he ignored it. I can still fix this, he said to himself. Then he pushed harder. Bigger bets, riskier decisions. And desperation slowly began to replace his strategy. And within 2 years, everything was gone, completely gone. The frustration that followed was heavier than any celebration he had ever had. No more noise. No more excitement. No more wins, just reality. For weeks, Tundwood sat alone, staring at nothing. The same man who once handled millions now had nothing left. Not even control. How did this happen? He whispered. But deep down he knew. He had mistaken luck for skill, speed for success, excitement for progress. As days turned into weeks, and survival became his only focus. For the first time in his life, he had to work. Not for luxury, but to eat. He took small jobs, anything he could find. And every single day, he felt the weight of his mistake. But something else was happening too. Slowly and quietly, pain was teaching him. And for the first time, Tund was beginning to understand something he had never known before, the value of effort. At first, Tund hated being a worker. The long hours, the small pay, the constant rejection. It felt like punishment. Every morning, he woke up in a place far from the life he once knew. No luxury, no comfort, no recognition, just survival. He worked anywhere he could, carrying boxes in warehouses, running errands for people who barely noticed him, standing for hours under the sun, doing jobs he never imagined he would do. And the worst part? No one cared who he used to be. No one knew he was a billionaire's son. To them, he was just another man trying to get by. At first, his pride fought back. This isn't me, he would mutter. But reality didn't listen. Hunger didn't listen. So slowly, he adjusted. One weekend, after a long week of work, Tund went to a cafe to have a nice time. As he entered, He ordered a bottle of water and sat near the window. As he was sipping the water, he noticed something. A young man sat beside him, working on a laptop, focused and calm. Ton watched for a while. "What do you do?" he finally asked. The man looked up briefly. "Video editing." They chat for a while, and the guy told Ton how he's been doing it for more than 3 years, and how he normally comes to the cafe to do some work when home feels boring. Ton frowned. "Do people pay for that?" The man smiled slightly. "More than you think." That simple answer stayed with him. That night, Ton couldn't stop thinking about it. For the first time since he lost everything, curiosity soaked him. Days later, after doing lots of research online, Ton made a decision. He enrolled in a basic video editing course. It wasn't easy. He struggled at first. The software felt confusing. The process felt slow. Nothing came naturally. But anyways, he didn't quit. Because now, he understood something he didn't before. There was no shortcut to success. So he kept learning, practicing, failing, and trying again. After completing the course, he expected things to change quickly. But he was wrong. Getting his first client felt impossible. He sent several cold pitches, applied for jobs, reached out to people, but most ignored him. Some rejected him. Only a few gave him small opportunities, but nothing consistent. There were days he wanted to give up, days he questioned everything. But he didn't stop. Then one day, something shifted. A company gave him a small project. He delivered it carefully and professionally. And that one job led to another, and then another, until eventually he got an offer, a retainer contract, and that was a great opportunity for him. For the first time in a while, Tund felt happy, not because of money, but because of progress. And slowly and steadily, he began to rebuild. As for Femi, he didn't rush. Unlike Tund, he believed in one thing: image. To make money, he told himself, you have to look like money. So instead of thinking about investment or skill, he focused on appearance. The first thing he did after leaving home was upgrade his lifestyle. Expensive suits, designer shoes, luxury wristwatches and gadgets. He moved into a high-end apartment, surrounded himself with people who lived flashy lives, and quickly built a reputation. From the outside, he looked successful, very successful. People admired him, followed him, and listened to him. Business is about perception, he would say confidently to anyone who cared to listen. If people believe you are successful, opportunities will come. At first, it almost seemed true. He attended elite gatherings, met wealthy individuals, spoke confidently about deals and investments, even when there was nothing concrete behind them. But behind the polished image, there was a problem: no real income. Money began to leave faster than it came. Rent, clothes, parties, lifestyle, everything required constant spending. And at first, he didn't worry. I still have enough, he told himself. But enough began to shrink, quietly and dangerously. Then one afternoon, he checked his account. And for the first time, his confidence shook. The numbers were lower than expected. Much lower. He frowned. How? But the answer was simple. He had been spending without building. Still, he refused to change immediately. Instead, he doubled down. If I look bigger, I'll attract bigger opportunities. So he spent more. More appearances. More luxury. More pressure. But unfortunately, nothing came back. Months later, reality arrived. His account was empty. Everything has gone. Just like that. And the frustration that followed was different from Tons. It wasn't filled with shock. It was filled with denial. This is temporary, Femi told himself. But it wasn't. Soon, the lifestyle he was used to began to collapse. The apartment had to go. The expensive clothes sold. The watches gone. One by one, he began to lose everything he had used to build his image. And the people he spent his money with all disappeared too. The same people who once admired him, they stopped calling, stopped responding, and stopped caring. One evening, sitting alone in a small, unfamiliar space, Femi stared at his reflection. He felt that there was nothing impressive about himself. No more luxury. No more confidence. But it's just the truth. I built nothing, he whispered. And that truth was harder to accept than losing the money. As for the third son, Kunal, he didn't think about business. He didn't think about strategy. And he definitely didn't think about the future. For him, life was simple. Enjoy it, fully, immediately, without limits. The moment he left home, he stepped into a world of pleasure. Nightclubs, parties, and endless celebrations. Music blasting through the night, lights flashing, laughter everywhere. He became a regular face in places where money disappeared faster than time. And he didn't mind. Because to him, that was the point. He surrounded himself with people who lived the same way. Friends who loved excitement. People who never asked questions. People who only showed up when there was something to enjoy. At the center of it all was Kunnel, paying for everything. Smiling, laughing, living like there was no tomorrow. And for a while, it felt perfect. No stress, no pressure, no responsibility, just freedom. But slowly, that freedom began to cost more than he realized. Bills increased. Spending doubled, then tripled. But Kunnel didn't slow down. If the money is there, why not use it, he would say. However, the first sign came quietly one night, for his card was declined. He laughed it off. Try it again, he told the attendant. It failed again. For a brief moment, something felt off. But instead of thinking, he ignored it. Days later, the reality became clearer. His account was dropping, fast. But instead of stopping, Kunnel pushed harder. More parties, more spending, more distractions. Because deep down, he didn't want to face the truth. Then one day, the money was gone completely. And the loneliness that followed was brutal. No more music or crowd, just emptiness. One day, Kunnel picked up his phone and called a friend. But no answer. He called another. Nothing happened. He sent messages, but no replies. Days passed, and the same people he spent millions on didn't even check on him. He went to the same places they used to gather. They saw him, but avoided him. That was when it hit him. They were never my friends. His voice was low. Broken. They were just enjoying my money. For the first in a while, Kunnel felt alone. With no money left, he had no choice. So, he began to ask for help. From the same people he once partied with. But this time, the roles had changed. And the answer was the same everywhere. Silence. One evening, sitting by the roadside, tired and empty, Kunnel stared at the passing cars. His reflection stared back at him from a nearby glass. And he barely recognized the person. I had everything, he whispered. And I wasted it. Unlike his brothers, Kunnel didn't just lose money. He lost people, trust, and a part of himself. And deep down, he knew something painful. This fall would not be easy to recover from. So 5 years have passed. Slowly for some, painfully for others. But for the three brothers, it changed everything. And finally the day to present their report arrived. Back at the mansion, nothing was left to chance. Mr. Adebayo had prepared for this day with precision. The grand hall was transformed into a place of judgment. Long tables were arranged neatly, covered with rich fabrics. Soft lights reflected off the polished floors. Food and drinks filled every corner, untouched for now. Important people gathered. Business partners, close friends, family members, all seated in quiet anticipation. They had come to witness something unusual. Not a celebration, but a decision. At the far end of the hall, Mr. Adebayo sat. Calm, still, and unreadable. His seat, crafted from fine Italian leather, stood slightly elevated, giving him a full view of the entire room. But his eyes were not on the crowd. They were fixed on the entrance, waiting for the arrival of his sons. The room fell silent as the doors opened. The first son, Tund, walked in. But he didn't look the same. No luxury, no flashy appearance. Just a simple, clean outfit. But his walk was different, steady, and grounded. There was something new about him. Something quiet, but strong. People whispered softly. That's him. He looks different. Tund walked forward, stopping at the center of the hall. He bowed slightly to his father. Then he turned to face the audience. Then he began. I won't lie, he said. I failed first. That single sentence shifted the room. Curiosity rose instantly. He continued. I thought I could make money quickly. So I chose betting and gambling. Murmurs spread. He explained everything. The wins. The confidence. The losses. How $10 million disappeared within 2 years. The hall grew quiet. No one expected that. Then his tone changed. But losing everything was the best thing that happened to me. Now, everyone listened closely. He spoke about his struggles. The jobs. The rejection. The hunger. Then, the turning point. Learning video editing was my breakthrough, he said. Some people exchanged glances. This wasn't the story they expected. Then he explained how difficult it was to get his first client. How he almost gave up. How he kept going. And finally, how he built something from nothing. I now run a video editing agency, he said. We work with clients from different parts of the world. Silence filled the room. Then he added, and we generate over $7 million annually. This time, the reaction was louder. Surprise, impressed whispers, and nods of approval. Tun stepped forward, placed a check in his father's hand. $15 million, he said. He paused briefly, then said, 10 million is your capital. 5 is my profit. The hall erupted in applause. Not because of the money, but because of the journey. Mr. Adebayo looked at him, really looked at him, and for the first time in years, he smiled. Then he stood up and embraced his son tightly. But as the applause slowly faded, the tension returned, because everyone knew this was just the beginning. The second son was about to speak, and no one knew what to expect. As the applause slowly faded, the energy in the room didn't settle. It shifted from admiration to curiosity. All eyes turned toward the entrance again, and the second son, Femi, walked in. Unlike before, there was no elegance in his appearance, no expensive suits, no polished confidence, just simplicity. He walked to the center, avoiding eye contact with the crowd, then finally faced them. For a moment, he said nothing. Then he spoke. I didn't lose my money in one day. His voice was calm, but there was weight behind it. I lost it slowly, while trying to look successful. The room grew quiet. He explained everything. The luxury lifestyle, the expensive choices, the need to impress people who never truly cared. I thought if I looked rich, I would become rich. A few people lowered their heads, because that truth felt familiar. He talked about how the money disappeared, not suddenly, but steadily, quietly, painfully, and how, when it was all gone, so were the people. I built an image, he said, but there was nothing behind it. My father, he turned slightly, facing father. I've tried hard to make you proud today, but I'm sorry, I had nothing to present. Silence filled the hall. Then Femi stepped back. No check, no profit, but just honesty and accountability. His father smiled and nodded his head as he uttered his last sentence. Before anyone could fully process it, the doors opened again, and the third son, Kunal, entered. But this time, even the air changed. He looked nothing like the man who once lived for pleasure. His face carried a different story. He walked slowly to the center, paused, then spoke. I didn't just lose money. His voice cracked slightly. I lost myself. The words hit harder than anything said before. He didn't try to impress anyone. He didn't try to explain too much. He simply told the truth. The parties, the waste, the false friendships. And the moment everything ended. I called people I spent millions on, he said quietly. No one answered. The silence that followed was deep. Kunal looked at his father and said, Luckily, I bounced back with the help of a man who is a real estate developer. He explained how he met the man during his lowest moment and how he helped him by making him his assistant. The man gives him commission on every successful deal after learning about his story. Then he stepped forward and handed his father a check. I'm sorry, father. I can only return your capital, but no gain or profit. His father smiled as he collected the check from him. Now, Triplet had spoken, and the room held its breath, waiting for the decision of who is going to be the heir to Adebayo's fortune and empire. Mr. Adebayo stood slowly and walked forward. He stopped in front of his sons. He looked at Tun first, then Femi, then Kunal. You all lost something, he said. His voice was calm, but powerful. But more than your losses, you all learned a great deal of lessons. He turned to Tund. You lost money and gained value. Tund lowered his head slightly. He turned to Femi. You lost money and discovered truth. Femi swallowed quietly. Then he faced Kunal. You lost money and felt pain. Kunal looked down. Mr. Adebayo stepped back slightly. Then he said the words everyone had been waiting for. My heir is. Then he paused, long enough to raise every heartbeat in the room. 3 of you, the billionaire finally said. The room went cold, confusion writing on everybody's faces. Even the 3 sons were in total shock. Then Mr. Adebayo cleared his throat as he walked to the center of the hall. The room went silent again as everyone was eager to hear what the man had to say. I know this might surprise lots of you, he said. But this is not about money or who made the most profit. Confusion flickered across faces. It is because all the boys have changed. The words settled deeply. They've learned discipline. They've understood effort. They've learned many valuable lessons about life. Mr. Adebayo looked at all 3 of them again. He stepped closer to Femi and Kunal. And you too. They looked up. I want you to understand that you have not lost your future. The room shifted again. You have learned lessons that money cannot teach. His voice softened. And I have chosen you too because I believe if you are willing to grow. He paused. You can still have a place in what I built. Tears filled Kunnel's eyes. Femi nodded slowly. Mr. Adebayo hugged all three of them, together. And for the first time, they stood not as enemies. Not as careless sons, but as men who had finally begun to understand life. And at that moment, the billionaire smiled. Not because he had chosen an heir, but because, at last, he had not lost his sons. If you find this story meaningful, kindly like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for more stories updates. Also, what lesson did you learn from this story? We would like to know in the comments. Thank you for watching.